Hey, welcome back. That was funny, right? Little pressure there. Sorry for that. Now, I'm not going to try to remember, because I've made this mistake in the past, when I first met my next guest. So those of you who've watched some of these know that when I finally got John Hamm on, who's so amazing, I was sharing how thrilled I was because we hadn't met. And then he, of course, reminded me that we played 9 holes of golf together and then ate a meal. So I'm not going to make that mistake ever again, or so I've told myself. But we did work together a couple of years ago now on a movie I'm actually very, very proud of, even though I think it was a straight-to-DVD. Was it? Did we get any theaters? I don't remember.
There was that one on Fairfax.
Oh, was there? All right. All right. I'm sorry. Straight to Fairfax. We went straight to Fairfax.
Straight to the matinee.
Yeah. We opened on it. I've had a movie open up on an airplane, so let's please. Fairfax is fine. By the way, it was so bad. It was only on flights between LA and San Francisco. You had to have a round trip to see the whole thing. But I kid. I bring out the guns. Illeana Douglas, you've already been on camera, so I welcome you.
Yes, I've been here.
Thank you.
I've been here.
Thank you for joining us. Now
Thank you. Audience of one.
I understand you have a bad wing.
I have a bad wing, but I didn't wear my sling because I didn't want to show off.
It's not fashionable.
It interfered with the
stripes,
the mic, with the stripes and the mic. Yeah, in a dance class, I did a severe jazz hands move or something, and
you Bob Fosse'd yourself?
I did. I did a little tearing in the rotator cuff.
Did you?
Yes. Yes.
Now, are you of mind when they first tell you of an injury like this to say rotator cuff?
Oh, no.
You didn't see that question coming, did you?
No.
You thought I was going the other way.
Yes, I did. Because it's the one injury that apparently everybody has, and so everybody tells you about it.
Right. When you get to be a certain age, I think 35 and older, be wary of your rotator cuff.
The interesting thing for me is I was on the set, we just were working with, and I was working with Tom Arnold, and so he knows all the big sports doctors. So he sent me to this guy, some big doctor that works with the Clippers and all these people that I don't know about, but is somewhat important. And they put me on medication. I was on for 2 days, and I was ready for rehab after 2 days. It was one of the weirdest. I can't take drugs at all. It was a very, very interesting experience for me.
Oh, right on. But thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Was why I was mentioning it, because you're, I believe, our first guest who's come bearing an injury.
Oh, interesting.
So thank you for that.
Well,
Yeah.
Also,
they're
the
all
heart is
damaged.
Yes.
Everybody's damaged emotionally in every other way. So our movie opened up a matinee at Fairfax. That's fantastic. I'm really proud of Otis. I don't even know that I got to the mentioning the name of it. It's called Otis, and it's one of the top 10 downloaded on Netflix now since it came out. So I know there are people out there other than the two of us who think that it's...
Well, we had a blast doing it, and
which is always the kiss of death.
No, our scene, we had a lot of fun doing that scene.
Yeah, Danny Stern.
Was that the first time we'd ever worked together?
I want to say yes, but it seems impossible.
I've met you over the years many times. Right. I know we met on Casino. I was just sort of, I met you. Right. I think that may have been the first time.
I think that was the first time. Well, that was also 1995.
Yeah.
So that was a while ago.
I feel like I met you other places, though, like maybe the Bill Maher Show, Politically Incorrect, Aspen Comedy Fest.
I think we did maybe Politically Incorrect together as guests. That's now ringing a bell.
Yeah.
Also, there's a chance that people will confuse us because we're character actors who do a lot of work.
Yes, that's true.
And I've been said before, you're not Illeana Douglas, are you? And I always say, yes, I am.
I was once called, one year, I think I was called the female Bill Macy, which when you were listening, we were talking before, like, that's not a compliment. No. That's not good.
Thanks for helping. Thanks for trying to make me feel like an Academy Award nominee.
I think I tried to do, 18 movies under $1 million in 1 year or something.
Yeah. Well, we both don't show. Oh, somebody refilled. Was that you, Jamie? Did you refill my cup during the? Wow. That's amazing.
Nice.
Craft services, right. And naked, apparently. Did you see the shot? Show the shot again. Let Illeana in on this. Does she not look like she's naked behind
Wow.
the computer? It's just boots? Oh,
Yes.
now you're getting a little bit of the dress. All right.
Yeah, I see it.
All right. I'm sorry. So
Nice.
I have to go here because I
Is this the closest I'll ever come to Charlie Rose?
Yes.
By the way, suddenly I saw that. And
well, yeah,
man, oh, man.
I
was
don't-
at a dinner party with him once, though. Man, that guy can yammer on.
You know, you
mean-
might have mentioned that elsewhere, and perhaps that's why you haven't been on the show.
No, I've never mentioned that.
Oh.
But
Until now?
Until now,
Okay, but
that's
you know
a
this
first.
is going out into the world.
I do. He's a lovely person, but he did tend to go on a lot. There was other people at the table, you know. I
He
mean,
is
I
Southern.
had.
He is Southern. They'll talk ad nauseum about nothing.
Ay, between him and then the other woman, Peggy Noonan.
Oh my.
Between the both of them.
You were soaring.
Well,
with
you
the
know, I
Eagles.
was an actress. I had a couple quips, you know.
You had a story about Burgess Meredith that you could have thrown out
Couple
there.
things, but no. 8 courses of Charlie Rose and Peggy Noonan. Blah, 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 the world.
That is fucking fantastic.
right,
Yes, no,
go
I
ahead.
ripped Charlie off blindly with the black backdrop and the round wooden table because I wanted to have conversations.
Yes.
And his was the only show I'd ever seen where people were actually talking. And I
That's
thought,
true.
you know what, let's just create the
it's-
exact same sort of dynamic.
It's fun. I love it.
And until
no-
he says, hey, you did my bit. You doing my bit? Why are you doing my bit? I'm just going to keep
But
doing
he'd
it.
do it like he'd lean in. Like,
Yeah, right.
do it
Why are you
like
doing
that.
my bit?
He is a great show, by the way. I love watching it.
Yeah, I do too, and I love the one time that I got to do it, and I know that I'll never be on again, especially now that I've taken his bit.
Oh, I'm sure you will.
But so I have not seen you discuss this. Perhaps you have. But,
Yes.
But my team of researchers
Yes?
came up with this piece of your history,
Yes?
and I immediately felt like, how did I not know that? And it may be boring already for you, so stop getting excited.
Okay.
I shouldn't have taken this long, but I felt like I needed to qualify the hell out of it because it seems so pedestrian.
Okay.
And I'm not terribly proud that I'm starting on such a pedestrian level. Your grandfather,
Yes.
the fuck? Seriously?
Oh, yeah, my grandfather was Melvin Douglas.
Yes.
Yes. I thought maybe you knew that. You didn't know that?
This is what I'm saying. I don't know how I didn't know this.
Oh.
Maybe because you don't, go around waving the flag.
Well, you know, the interesting thing is that the internet came about, and when I was first starting to act,
Right.
you know, everybody obviously knew who Melvin Douglas was, a 2-time Academy Award winner.
Is my point, is why I'm,
Et cetera.
we've got some tea for you.
Oh,
Very fancy.
my tea has arrived.
Yes.
You have a plethora of
I'm a big,
Look at that, you have some syrup,
lovely.
otherwise known as honey in a syrup thing.
I'm a big tea drinker, so thank you.
Yeah, no, they're looking after you. Wow, you've got, I've never had such an assortment.
Righty then.
Nice. Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sorry. I had to do that. Now I got 2. He obviously influenced me quite a bit. And when I was a kid, I was on the Being There set, which is another whole like interesting experience. I got to meet Peter Sellers.
I think you need to share a little bit of that.
I
How
will.
old were you on the set of Being There?
Oh God, I'm not good with years. I was a kid, in high school. What year was it?
High school?
Yeah.
All right, so we're in the 13, 14,
65.
15, 16 years.
Yeah.
Maybe
So-
14 through 17, depending on where you were when
like
you went to school.
14.
But, so you're in that range, and you
Yeah, when-
visit your grandfather on the set of Being There.
On the set of Being There, which was just an incredible experience. They were shooting in Asheville, North Carolina, and I met Peter Sellers, who at that point in my life, I had big posters of him.
Already you had been madly in love from the Pink Panther and other stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was a big, in our family, we always sort of talk through movies. So A Shot in the Dark, and I shot him in A Fit of Relis Gage, and
Yeah.
Peter Sellers we used to listen to the records, and so my grandfather doing a movie with Peter Sellers was a pretty big deal for me.
Awfully big deal.
Yeah, so I got to, it was the first time I'd ever been on a film set, and so it really had this kind of holy quality, and I met Hal Ashby, and later on, of course, all these movies in the 70s, I realized, oh, that's the guy that I met when I was...
Yeah, I was just going to say, at 15, did you really know who the hell Hal Ashby was?
No,
And the
I
answer
didn't.
is no.
No, and so that movie, interestingly, has sort of followed me throughout my life. I rented a house in California that Hal Ashby had owned that house. So there's a lot of touch points with that movie. And my grandfather had... he and Peter Sellers were in the Army together, in different armies, obviously, but they both served in Burma,
Wow.
so they knew each other. So there's a connection with that. But anyway,
Did you see them talking about that?
no, but I know that
You heard.
I later in a book read that that's part of the reason that they were very close. And I know that the end of the movie, which they recently did a re-release of the film, so I discussed this, is that they were so close that one day they were walking down the hall, they were doing the scene, and they were sort of walking arm in arm, and their reflection could be seen on the floor, the dark floor, and the DP Caleb Deschanel pointed out to Hal Ashby, and that's how he got the idea for the end of the movie.
Oh my God.
Where he would walk on his own reflection.
Right.
But I know for my grandfather, it was he had a really interesting year that year. He was like 79, and he did that film, and he also worked with Roman Polanski, which he said also was an incredible experience doing The Tenant. So my grandfather used to always say, like there is no such thing, all acting, if it's any good, is character acting. So I kind of like to think in that same, and I don't think, I love to think of a career as being like an entire career. I don't think of it as, it's like you start when you're in your 20s, and hopefully you get to do it until you're in your 80s,
Right.
I hope.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, character acting was always just the actors who were allowed to do a variety of roles.
Right.
That's what always sort of represented to me. Oh, the poor leading man doesn't get to do.
I mean, I think of them as, movies when I was a kid, like Eugene Pallette, like people that are really character actors.
Sure.
But now character actor, then you think of Dustin Hoffman being a character actor, and then I'm not really sure what a character actor is these days.
Although they keep calling us that, don't they?
Yeah.
Because they don't know how else to
I think it means we're good actors.
categorize. Well, clearly that's exactly what it means.
Yes.
Two things. One, because this is the fabulous internet, we can pretty much go anywhere and talk about anything we want, and be sort of as loosey-goosey. Like, for example,
Yeah.
I can take this opportunity to ask let's see the camera angle of the NASA group that launches this shuttle every week. There they are, wandering around. Yeah.
Lovely.
I want to just have you on camera while I ask you to shut the fuck up out there while we're doing the show. Thank you. And now back in here. Yeah, yeah. That's how loosey-goosey we are.
I see.
You were giving a very poignant answer, and all I could hear was my crew in the other room talking among themselves, and I did not enjoy that particular thing. So I thought, what other time should I tell them? Later, when it's I should say.
Yeah.
But they are amazing, so I don't want to be too hard on them. And they are They have to pay to work here, so it's not like I have
way to do it.
too much leeway. So here's the thing: I sort of came from a family where there was no touchstone of any sort of show business. So I'm always fascinated by the influence it has on you, because as a child, he's your grandfather. As a child, he's also, at some age, you become aware of what he does for a job, even though you may not be sure at such a tender age what the hell that means. When does it become clear to you, or have some sort of resonance, that he's won 2 Academy Awards, that he's revered by all of his peers, and so on? That he's not just your grandfather?
God.
Again, I don't want to pin you down to the numbers, because I'm just talking about the point in your life as opposed to the actual number.
Well, it's interesting. My childhood was very interesting. My mom is Italian Catholic, and
I had no idea of that, by the way.
And so we really grew up with that influence, and the influence of my grandmother, who was, a former rockette, and
Grandmother was a former rockette.
yeah, like jazz baby of the 20s.
Oh
And
my
she
God,
really,
I love this.
and she really wanted to be an actress, but she was too nervous to do it. She auditioned to be, Theda Barris. stand in and chickened out at the last minute. So her real dream was to be in show business. And so she was the one who would always take me to movies and stuff. So I would spend the half of the summer with my grandmother in Astoria, and then I'd spend the other half of the summer with my grandfather, Melvin, going to see theater and reading books and, meeting.
Were they not together? Is that why you're spending halves of the summer with each of them?
Well, my grandparents lived on the Upper West Side, and my mom's grandparents lived
these are two
in
separate
Astoria.
sets of grandparents.
Yes.
My apologies.
Yes.
Okay. So your mother's mother.
My mother's mother had the kind of lower middle class love of the movies, and my grandfather had sort of the love of theater and elocution and reading. So it was kind of a perfect combination for me. I got both the showbiz glamour. I think actually came more sort of from my grandmother.
The fan.
Yes.
Right.
And from my grandfather was much more about reading and learning about Shakespeare and Moliere and Salmon Bella Spiewak, and I'm going to throw out very strange, but reading about writers and Billy Wilder and getting my knowledge of art and history and theater.
How unbelievably fortunate you were to have that influence in your life, seriously.
Yeah, so even though I didn't really understand at a young age that he was in show business, I knew that when you stayed with him, you kind of had to be on your best game. You couldn't really sit at the dinner table unless you were, well prepared to tell some funny story or be witty or something. Really? Yeah, there was
Well, what about being out with him and having him being recognized?
Well, that was amazing. That I do remember.
Okay, good.
I remember staying with him, and I really wanted to see Evita. Because every time I'd stay with him, we'd get to see a play. And I wanted to see Evita, and anyone who knows about my grandfather's history knows that he was very political, and he didn't want to take me to Evita because he was against the Franco, regime. He said it's a musical, Granddaddy. But anyway, so he kind of huffed and puffed, but he took me to that, and afterwards we went to Sardi's, and one of my big remembrances, of course, not only was meeting famous people with my grandfather, but was how much food we would get. And so we would,
all the free shit they send over because you're with.
Yeah. So when I got older, I'd always want to go back to these restaurants where I went with my grandfather, because I'd tell people they give enormous portions here. And of course, I later realized, oh, that was just him. It took me many years to then again realize that when I became successful, thank God those big portions are back.
Yeah. Thank God. Yeah.
Yes.
Because you clearly can't stop eating.
No.
So, all right. So now you've had this unbelievably rich childhood in terms of people who appreciate the arts as well as literature and all of that. And so during that time, does it start to formulate in your mind that this is something you may want to do in terms of?
Yeah, we grew up in the 70s, very much like a kind of a hippie culture. My parents were teachers, and had we become a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, that would have upset my parents. They had a really artsy philosophy.
My son, the sellout surgeon.
Exactly. Yeah, none of us really went to college, or it was, my father used to take us out of school, and we'd go on field trips, to photographing buildings, and then have to write a little paper on them. None of this went over very well.
You were technically homeschooled, and on occasion you had to go to where the other kids went.
Yes. Or my father I'd be learning something, and he'd make me learn some other part of the book that I'd have to find some part of the book that I enjoyed.
Right.
And so I'd be, 3 o'clock in the morning going, thanks, Dad. I know, you're right. I enjoyed that. I'm going to fail the test tomorrow, but I actually learned something about geometry.
Were you able to appreciate that? Because, a lot of kids would rebel.
Yeah, absolutely. I get along very well with my family, and I always have, and we've always been a very close-knit family. I'm not quite sure why that is, but we share a lot of the same interests. I traveled with my brothers in Europe. I've just always really enjoyed hanging out with them, and they get me, and I get them.
Yeah.
And again, maybe it's because we had certain touch points growing up.
Right.
My parents took us to the same foreign movies, and so we all had that in common. And we went to see the same sort of art. They taught us about art, and so we'd listen to the same crazy comedy albums. I remember my dad brought home, somebody gave him this the first comedy album I ever heard was called The Yiddish Are Coming. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's really obscure. But I mean, man, as kids, we just thought that was the funniest thing.
In an Italian home, The Yiddish Are Coming is an interesting choice.
Well, it was something my dad gave. He was in some 70s alternative, group therapy, and it was very much like the Bob Newhart. I mean, when I say group therapy, it wasn't like people with serious problems. It was like a guy that was, really fat and couldn't get dates, or a lonely bachelor or something, and they'd all come
Jerry
over.
Burns.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they'd all come over to the house, and I remember most of it was people would come over to the house and bring albums, and they'd bring comedy albums, and I remember just, things like that, listening to comedy albums from my father's crazy group therapy group. And so then all of us kids would want to tell jokes because we'd heard them on the albums.
Is that when the notion started to spark from that, in terms of...
I think it was that, and then again, you had my grandfather who was very artsy, and he whenever we were around, we would put on plays. I mean, it was, you'd almost think it was insufferable. It was, when we would stay with him, it was like the Seagull. I mean, we would perform, and all the cousins would get together, and, we'd recreate. It was, we recreated plays.
Well, this was a time, by the way, when you couldn't send the kids off to go play video games. I mean,
Right.
They existed, but... there seems to be, and I would be guilty of it, I'm certain, if I were a parent, which is, here's a video game, I need a couple hours break on this whole be the best dad in the world thing.
Yeah.
And I think I was raised also in a time when we need to find something for the kids to do, something creative.
Oh, I mean, we would recreate, all the songs from Simon and Garfunkel. We'd do complete recreations of The Boxer and Sound of
Dramatic
Silence.
interpretation?
Exactly.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Any chance you can reprise one of those?
No. I do remember my mother's favorite was I did a Glenn Campbell song called Picture the Dreams of the Everyday Housewife.
And you did a dramatic interpretation of that?
Yes, I did, and that was one of my grandfather's favorite. I wore one of my mother's nightgowns, and why I thought I was a lonely housewife at 7 or 8. I'm not really sure, but anyway, I would do this whole thing with my husband.
The music was playing in the background while you acted something out?
Yes, we put on.
You were doing the original music video.
Yes,
really?
I think so.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yes, or not so.
No. Yeah. It is. It's really fantastic. Now, you've avoided the Twitter. That sort of thing doesn't interest you, I sense in a conversation at one point?
No, it does. I'm so lazy. I enjoy it.
You're not enough of a narcissist, I don't think.
I'm one of those people, one day I'd be wildly wanting to do it. And then
all day long.
Right, and then the next day.
Because you're friends with Jeff Garland. He's on there.
Jeff Garland, Justine Bateman. She's Twittering constantly. She wakes up and Twitters, right? Does anyone Twitter in their sleep yet?
First of all, it's tweet.
Oh, okay.
Twitter's the noun.
Oh, right. Tweeting.
Sure. Thank
in
you.
their
Jesus.
Tweeting in their sleep.
Yeah, it's.
I'm afraid it's like the stock market. The minute I get in, everybody's gonna not.
It's a Ponzi scheme. Twitter's a Ponzi scheme.
Right.
They just can't figure out how to make the money yet.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, because of.
But I love it. I'm fascinated by it. My band is on there, Spar Husen. They've got 3 tweets.
We need to talk next about the Spar Husen, the band.
Yeah.
But first.
Yes.
I think we have some kind of clip loaded up that I want to. Maybe I'll play this and then ask you about it, since you're not sure what it is.
Okay.
So a little bit of a surprise, but it's something that fascinated and entertained, and I wanted to. So let's show it real quick. The Otis clip has just Illeana, not you, and her, and okay. But what about
3 clips for her?
Yeah. Okay. I don't. Yes.
There.
I didn't want to give it away. But you've seen it. You know what it is. Sorry. Clip, no. There's no clip. You idiot. Can't afford a clip.
I'm enjoying myself.
Oh, were you?
Watching it. That was funny.
Oh,
It
good.
was good.
Yeah. Now, you said that you, that's one of those things where they just call up and they say, we're doing this crazy thing. Do you want to be a part of this? And you hear that it's raining.
Yeah, and then weirdly, they call you and you go, I know Rain and I are trying to put together a movie, and a dentist I've worked with,
Right.
and you kind of know everybody, and the director ended up being the director of Ugly Betty, and the producer was the producer from Alive. So it's like it ends up, I mean, I'm sure you have the same thing. It's like, it starts out like, hey, and then you find out you get
You
there.
know everybody.
You know everybody. And Dennis is amazing. I did one movie with Dennis, but
What'd you do with it?
I did a movie called that I actually helped produce called Search and Destroy, and he was also a major part of my childhood because my dad saw the movie Easy Rider, and we became hippies after he saw that movie, and so I always, again, think it's strangely fascinating that you would meet someone. Dennis Hopper in many ways changed my life. Like if my father hadn't seen Easy Rider
Right.
and quit his job and become hippies, maybe we would have had a different kind of a life. So it was very interesting to actually be in a movie with Dennis Hopper. It was surreal.
And also years later, I imagine, when you saw Lost in America, in the first 45 minutes, you went, don't do this.
Yes, I've seen the future.
And it's a guy named Phil.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So next, I need to hear about. So you decide that you want to be in plays, you want to be an actor, but also there's a little side trip to stand-up comedy at a very young age.
That was money. I mean, I wanted to be in show business. Like that was I didn't really have much of a dream aside from,
There was no vision, there was no epiphany, I'm going to be this.
No, I was like a kid. I was obsessed with the movies.
Right.
And I had pictures of people from the movies all over my room, and I knew that somehow I wanted to be in the movies, and I didn't know exactly how. I mean, if I thought where my career was going to go, I thought maybe I'd be on a sitcom, or I wanted to be on SNL. That was sort of more of a dream of mine. But
Sure.
But it just didn't really happen that way. I went to acting school. I got out of school, I was in a sketch comedy group called Manhattan Punchline, and while I was doing that, one of the guys sort of suggested that I work on a stand-up act.
Wow.
So, I just started doing that, because I used to, just make jokes, and I would punch up people's little monologues and things like that. And I lived very close to Stand Up New York, and they had a contest. It's actually a true story. They had a contest there that, like, if you won, I happened to work at a hotel, and they were running these like, I don't know what you'd call them, some sort of promo or whatever, like, that if you won, you got, $50 and a chance to be on the David Letterman show. And you only had to have 5 minutes of material. So I thought, well, how hard could this be?
Right.
So I came up with 5 minutes of material, which is great, because my roommate, I remember, like, every joke I would say, he'd go, that's not funny.
Right.
That's always, I think that's for your first baby steps of stand-up, people saying, that's not funny.
Right.
So so I had my 5 minutes, and I got through that contest, and then I came back, and then it was like a bunch of other people, and then I just had to get through that contest. So I ended up winning this
Wow.
contest at Stand Up New York. And I was really excited, and I went to the manager, and I've told the story so many times. The manager's name was Carrie. And I said to him, so when do I get to be on Letterman? And he said, no, you got it all wrong. He goes, what I meant by that was you win the contest, you work hard.
And someday, who knows?
Someday, you get to be on Letterman. So years later, I was on Letterman, and I did tell that story.
Right.
And Robert Morton was like, knew the guy that knew Carrie, the
right.
manager, and all that kind of stuff. But so I was briefly doing stand-up, and here was the problem for me. The stand-up element of it, the writing, the jokes, was very easy, and that part was a lot of fun. The performing for me was so stressful. I mean, I was an actor, and I only did it for the money because I just didn't have, I couldn't get a waiter job. I couldn't get jobs like that. So I thought, well, $50, you do 5-10 minutes. How hard could that be? So it was really based more on laziness. But for me, having to do, you get up in the morning, and I would rehearse it like an actor.
Right.
You know, and so the thought of like doing these, you know, and I'd go over and over and over and over it, and then you get there and you're with a bunch of the people that are really scary. And at the time, you know, the women comics were, it was just not my cup of tea. I'm not going to mention names, but it was tough. They were very tough.
Mention one.
I can't.
I knew you couldn't. It's all right. It's all right.
Some of them have become successful.
Needless to say.
Yes, and the lifestyle I just found was so difficult. You know, you go on at 11 o'clock at night,
Yeah.
and so it's like you're waiting around, and I'm standing backstage, and the other comedians, they're real comedians, but I'm an actor, so I'm there like doing my joke. I'm like, so I walked here today, and I went by, and you know, so I would work. People were looking at me like, you know, you're nuts. But then I would go out there.
Right.
And it was great. It was very easy. I would come off the stage. Of course, the adrenaline, as you well know, is, you know,
Unmatchable.
I couldn't handle it. Then I was up all night. And the lifestyle of this, and then so I would get through, and there were other people around at the time, believe it or not, like Dave Chappelle and Jay Moore, and they'd be like, "That was great. Now let's go down to the Comedy Cellar." I was like, "Oh my God, you gonna do this again?" And they were like, "Yeah, like
do 5 sets a night.
They go, "What are you, nuts?" Like, now you get on the train, you go to the Comedy Cellar. When you finish there, then you go to Catch a Rising Star. I was like, man, the lifestyle seemed so crazy. So I got this little manager, and he was like sending me off.
Like a midget? What do you mean?
A little manager. No, I little in this Broadway Danny Rose
Okay.
type again.
A little known manager.
I can't mention
You got
any
yourself a
names.
little known manager.
But you know, he booked me. Like I remember he booked me somewhere up in Yonkers. You know,
Sure.
and here I am, I'm like a young girl taking the train home. You know, $100 on the train. I'm like, this seems like a really hard way to make a living. So if it was at Stand Up New York, I was very happy. I love that. And so I picked up a few gigs doing Stand Up New York, and luckily for me, very quickly after that, I got a job on the movie New York Stories, and I didn't have to do stand up much longer. However, I know that Marty and Bob did constantly force me to do my Raging Bullwinkle routine, which was one of the highlights of my 5 minutes of fame as a stand-up. Don't ask me to do any of it because it was all dirty.
Why would you possibly think that I'm not going to ask you to do so?
To do some Raging Bullwinkle, I can't even remember it.
No,
Like,
I'm sure you can.
I can't.
A little bit,
really
a
can't.
little bit.
I can't. I remember Joe was the squirrel, and you know the drill. I can't do any of it. It's all bad. It was like back in the 80s.
Oh no, come on. Just a taste.
Maybe later on in my Larry King.
Okay.
You can.
Well, because I'm always fascinated, quite honestly, having spent 3 decades doing it, stand-up.
Mm-hmm.
There's certain bits that just do stay with you. They do, and whether they're appropriate anymore or not isn't even, the reason to.
I used to do humor about my family and my brothers and, and
Sure.
and my you know, it's embarrassing when your parents have better pot than you do, and you know, just it was stuff like that. And again, that was one of the reasons people liked me, is because I didn't come on and do. Let me tell you something. My boyfriend is such a all my humor was really more storytelling.
Yeah.
I was a big Albert Brooks fan, you know, and a lot of it was Albert Brooks-esque.
Right.
And, you know, mainly just sort of telling stories, or some Seinfeld, you know, like, do you ever notice, like, a lot of that kind of stuff? And New York is very easy to do. You know, I'm trying to think of big jokes I had. I mean, geez, I remember, like, so much of it is topical. I remember getting a huge laugh by talking about the summer and like saying, like, is it, you know, the whole thing of with the air conditioning, you know, versus the fan blowing in, fan blowing out. I mean, you know, things like that got a big laugh back in the 80s.
Really?
You know?
You're going to give us that, but not the...
You know, it was like, Rock, you remember?
Come on, just the
Did
taste.
you fuck my wife? With Joe Pesci as Rocky the Squirrel.
Sure.
Come on.
All right. I just needed a taste. I didn't need the whole bit. I'm just
Mr.
saying.
De Niro seemed to think that was very funny.
Yeah, you know,
They used to make me do it again and again and again on the set of Goodfellas. I'm like, it's not even funny. That and my Shelley Winters impression.
Well, that we're going to need for sure.
That was because I used to see her on the roof. I mean, I don't even know if she ever met Robert De Niro, but she used to go, Bobby and I, you know, and
Yeah.
Bobby and I did our thing. And I said to him, Bobby.
She did have that wonderful cadence, didn't she?
Yes.
That represented insanity immediately.
Yeah. Just like with her crazy wig. And anyway, she was always talking about Bobby. And then she'd always, like, I remember, she'd always turn and look really surprised that there was another guest there. That was another thing, Shelley Winters, like, somebody would say something and she'd go, what? Oh, startled me, you know.
Would you like to know what they're writing on the interwebs as we speak? I'm sure there's...
Only if it's nice.
Well, okay. This is actually very appropriate to actors such as ourselves.
Sure.
The question that comes up, which is, when you were working on something, did you know it was going to be ... And they're kind enough to throw out examples like Pluto Nash, which is impossible to know that it's going to be the train wreck that it ended up being, because you don't read a script and go, oh my God, this is a train wreck. Because it's never the script that makes it the train wreck.
I have to say, for me, every movie I've ever done has been a good experience in one way or not.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so funny. The internet is so much about, like, is that meant to be snarky? Like, you know,
No.
To mention Pluto Nash, because I have to say, for me, doing Pluto Nash,
I've never seen the film, so I wasn't representing my own opinion, by the way.
I was doing action at the time with Jay Moore.
Right.
And,
I believe you were nominated for a bunch of awards, and people really celebrated your
was
work
fun.
on that. That must have been pretty amazing.
Fun. Yeah, it was a really nice experience. A little ahead of its time, but a good experience.
Way ahead of its time. So you're working on that. And
with Jay Moore. And, we get this offer to be in an Eddie Murphy movie. And so, you weigh those opportunities, as I'm sure you do. Not every movie is like, well, I'm going to win a big award with this. These opportunities come along, and you say to yourself, I'd like to work with Eddie Murphy.
Yes, absolutely.
I think this will be a really fun experience.
Right.
And it was. It was so.
That's the part you take away as the performer.
For me, 90% of it is actually the performing of it. That's the most exciting part for me, getting the script, working on the script. Being on the set is joy. Once that's done, it's completely out of my control, and I don't really know, what happens to the movie after that. But my experiences of being on the set and when you're creating something are oftentimes, you can't even describe it to other people, and it's to sometimes to be in show business and get to work with people that you just get a kick out of. It was really fun, and and so I think of Pluto Nash, and also I got to meet Rosario Dawson on that, and she was She was great. She was like a last-minute replacement for somebody, and
Right.
we kidded around a lot on the set and stuff, and it was fun. But I remember like being really excited to meet Eddie Murphy.
Yeah, well, me too. I did a movie with him. It was one of the kid pictures that he mostly does.
Yeah.
Which one did I do?
I'm sorry.
The Eddie Murphy, Dr. Dolittle 2. Dr. Dolittle 2. I have to go to others now for my own IMDb because I can't.
I can't remember.
I don't know about you, but yeah. It was unbelievably exciting, and also, I by the way, as I mentioned, I hadn't seen Pluto Nash, so when I use a term like train wreck, I mean the end result, and I'm with
Yeah.
you, which is, as a gun for hire, not only do we have no control over the end result,
Right.
as in how it's going to be received. We don't even have any control over the editing, over anything
Yeah.
in terms of the finished product. So all we have is the experience of doing it. Yeah, and I think that's probably the best response to that sort of overall question. When you're doing something, do you have any idea? And I get asked that all the time for doing a small movie that ends up being huge, right? That is like
Yes.
Usual Suspects. Like when you read that script, did you know that sort of thing?
Right.
And that's an easier answer because it's just, well, it's the best script I've still ever read.
Right.
So certainly at the time, I didn't know what was going to come of it,
Yeah.
but I can tell you I knew that the script was ridiculous in terms of how great it was.
Right.
But otherwise, it is just the doing of it.
Yeah.
That's all we have.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go on the big picture of things in terms of life being about the journey, not the destination, but let's not always be goal-oriented or
Yeah.
end result.
Sometimes you do know it's good, and like I say, sometimes I'm just, I just want to meet the people, or you think it's going to be a fun experience, or you talk to the director and you're not really going to do it, but then after you speak to him,
Right.
they kind of change your mind,
Right.
So it's a lot of those different factors, It's
Do
fun to
you
work.
do you feel like you belong there when you're on the job? Because I don't know if this is just Jew insecurity, but it's the first week, sometimes the first 2 weeks, that I wait for someone to tap me on their shoulder and say, "We've made a horrible error."
I've had that experience, but really only early on, because one of the great experiences I had in working early on with someone like Robert De Niro is I had seen on a movie that he was doing a scene with an actor, and the actor got very intimidated by working with him.
Right.
And it really ruined all of his work. And so I realized how important it was that when it was your moment, like not to blow it or be scared, just to be a professional and really do your job. So I always try to be really well prepared and act like I belong there on the set. I have had experiences. I mean, there was one movie I did early on, and I was cast by the director. I'd gone in and auditioned for one part, and then I got offered another part. And by the time I got to the set, I had imagined just a love fest on the set of like how great it was all going to be, and it didn't quite turn out that way. And you get the knock on your trailer, and I was like, oh, I'm done for. This is not good. But they kept me on, but most of my part ended up on the cutting room floor.
No.
You can't figure out why.
But it also undermines your security on the next job. I mean, how do you process that? Do you let that go?
My expectations are always very, very high. I always imagine I'm going to come to the set, and Kevin Costner and I are going to be like this, and we're going to talk about movies. I don't know, because I'm delusional, but and sometimes it is that way, because I am like a little kid. I'm very excited to just sometimes to be there.
Are you like that though, even when you know Kevin Costner's not in the movie? Is it just him?
Well, with anybody I work with,
Right.
like I like to find, because I'm also a student of film. So if I hear, if I hear a little tidbit that they have happened to say on a talk show or something about movies, I tend to then want to, have a conversation about that. When I worked with Buck Henry, by the third day of shooting in To Die For, he said, "You can sit with me, but you cannot ask me any questions," because I was.
Because you had grilled him?
The first day he had his tray, and I
At
was
lunch?
like, and I was like, so when you did this, and he loved me. First day, second day, little less. Third day, and the tray,
You can sit with me, but don't ask me any questions.
yeah.
Oh my God. That should be the name of one of your books.
Yes, it could be. But I had a way of because I read so much about all these people, so I would want to get then. I knew sometimes some bit of the story, so I'd want to kind of hear something that they had to say,
Gus Van Sant, working with him on To Die For?
Yeah, that was amazing. That was my first experience of kind of really working with the camera
Can we get
more.
you some more hot water, by the way?
Yeah, I'd love some.
Yeah.
I love my tea.
And your tea loves you.
That was, oh, thank you. Because the movies I'd done before that were so much just about showing up and being really emotional and just acting, and I had no idea about what the camera was. But I remember doing a scene with Gus, and he said to me, that was really good, but we had the wrong lens on, so we're going to need to do it again, and we're going to put a different lens. And I had no idea what that meant. And so then I started learning, oh, actually, okay, so when there's a different lens, oh, I see, that changes your performance. And so then he started saying to me, what shot would you do, And I'd say, well, I would do an overhead, because you always do overheads. And he'd go, okay, we'll do an overhead. So
Wow.
it was really amazing. And so when we were doing the ice skating stuff, I'd say, well, why don't you try this? And he was great. He was really open to kind of hearing, things that I would want to do, which to me was just amazing. I mean, he was an amazing director to work with. And I asked him a couple times, would he be off camera for me? Because I had to do the, as an actor, there's the 5 hardest things to do. Probably number 1 is you have a phone call. Have you ever gotten that one? You have a phone call, and you have to cry instantly on and the camera zooms in, and boom.
No, I'm worthless in that situation. I'm absolutely worthless. It's Kate, please blow that peppermint shit in my eyes.
Well, usually you have to do it out of mood. I mean, if you see in To Die For, I'm getting off of a bus. So it's one of these you gotta be kidding, for it's yeah, phone call, okay, sure, hello, what, and it was really hard. So I asked Gus to be my off-camera person and hand me the phone and stuff. So you really feel a bond with someone who's like that. He just was just an amazing director. I loved working with him. And then he would come to my trailer, and he would hang out. Another kind of fun thing was that we had a mixtape, and he came into my trailer, and he was listening to my mixtape, and I had this Donovan song on called "Season of the Witch."
Oh no!
And he goes, I really like this, so we're going to use it for the end of the movie, you know. And so they were and then another time we were doing a sad scene, and they came running into my trailer, and they were like, it was for the funeral scene where everybody had to cry,
right.
And they came running in, and he goes, where's that tape you have? I know you've got some sad music on there. And because I think I had Imagine, I think I had John Lennon. We're like, can we borrow your tape?
Oh my God.
So everybody could cry. So so that was another sort of fun moment. So it really felt very much like being a part of the movie. And again, that was, in the golden days of movie making, where you went up, you rehearsed.
Yeah.
Amazing group of actors. One of the absolute just highlights of my life. You just go up, you rehearse, you're there 8-10 weeks.
Right.
You're going to dinner with the cast, you're looking at dailies, the movie comes out, you go on the festival circuit, you're traveling around Europe, you're meeting other people. And then that kind of all ended, but at least I got to experience it. It was an amazing experience getting to do that film.
Yeah, it is so unbelievably rare. And it's great to see that you can appreciate it for the time in your life. When
Incredible.
It comes, it ebbs and flows. That's the other amazing thing. Mm-hmm. These things come around. We were just at the Cannes Film Festival, and people say, "Oh, you must be so excited." It certainly dawned on me, Jesus, I hadn't been there since
Yeah.
Usual Suspects in '95.
Right.
And they go, well, why didn't you want to go back or this? And you realize, well, there's 9 different reasons why a film you did, the timing of it,
Right.
that it's not ready to come out, or that it's coming out a little later. Well, all these factors, you know, add up, and then you realize, how was it 14 years was the last time?
Wow.
And then you start to appreciate it that much more. And
But I wonder about that because, you know, and this is a joke that I have in the show, which was, it was fun to be famous when no one was famous, but now everybody is famous and I feel obsolete. Like back in those days, it felt fun to be famous.
right,
Because you're standing next to Gus Van Sant and Matt Dillon, and you're meeting Alan Rene, and he's saying nice things about your film, and culturally it seemed a little bit different. It was a little more select.
no, it was.
You were meeting filmmakers, you were meeting fellow artists, you know, you were going out to dinner with people, you'd be seated next to, you know, Bertolucci. I mean, it was an amazing time. And that's all sort of dissipated. You know, now I'm sitting next to someone from Dancing with the Stars, and in reality, and I don't know anybody. I don't know who anybody is, but like we're all famous, I guess, so we're all lumped in together.
Yeah.
So I wonder if going back to Cannes would have the same, you know, thrill that it had.
Only if I mean, nothing can ever be the same, and the thrills come from, how excited are you about the film? If you've seen it, you're about to go over there with it. So those factors, as all film festivals, doesn't matter if you're going to Park City, Utah, or the south of France.
Right.
If you're unbelievably passionate about the film and you're proud of it, then it's just going to be a great experience. You know, other than I'm not really fond of French food. Oh, this is a wonderful question from the Twitter land. I know I like to keep them a part of the show.
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
At Kelly Skittles, because that's a name. Kelly Skittles, at Kelly Skittles. Have you ever met any of the people whose lives are loosely represented in Grace of My Heart?
Yes, many of them. Anyone? Do they have anyone in particular, or?
Well, I'll put that out to Ms. Skittles. If there's anyone in particular you'd like her to comment on, please write back. In the meantime, who comes to mind? Anyone in particular?
We worked with so many people.
Right.
Jerry Goffin, Carol. It was loosely based on the life of Carole King. I had worked in the Brill Building. I'm going to make this story even longer. Allison Anders and I met up at Sundance. We'd tried to work on a movie for about a year about the life of Anne Sexton. It did not go, we couldn't get it off the ground, but we found out we shared this love of the Brill Building.
Right.
So we said, you know, we should do a movie sort of based on Carole King's life, because we thought that was fascinating, this idea of someone that was in the background, you know, but finally made it, you know, on her own and much later in life. And but she didn't help us too much with it, but Jerry Goffin, her then husband, helped us out quite a bit.
Right.
We spoke to Joni Mitchell quite a bit. She helped us a lot. Her record producer, this guy, Larry Klein, was our record producer, did all the music. He helped us out. John Phillips helped us out quite a bit, so he was there. We spoke to Brian Wilson. He was very helpful with the Matt Dillon. All the stuff with Matt Dillon was kind of loosely based on him and his relationship with his doctor. We spoke to Darlene Love.
Wow.
She was not, you know, so pleased. She didn't want. A lot of people had a lot of bitterness, you know, because they didn't make money in terms of that period. But
Right.
however, they were helpful. We spoke to Chris Christopherson. So we did as much research as we possibly could. Leslie Gore.
Wow.
Carol Bear Sager. So is a lot of people that did songs for the, you know, the show also were very helpful, and we had little lines of Chris Christopherson's in there, or Joni Mitchell's, or experiences that they had had, or Burt Bacharach also, you know, helped us out quite a bit.
Right on.
Yeah, it was great.
That was really a pretty great film.
Yeah, it was fun to do.
I mean, it seems like it came out as well as it was intended to, which is kind of rare.
Yeah, it was, again, it was in this great era of independent filmmaking.
Right.
Of, we went in to pitch it at Universal, and thank God, there was a guy named Tom Pollak who was a big fan of Allison Anders, and then Casey Silver
Right.
directly after him. And we went in, and, it was basically like if we got John Turturro, they'd give us the money. And we were in the parking lot going, God, making movies is so easy.
Right.
And of course, it was never that easy again. But there was a window
Yeah.
where it was, you brought a certain names, and you got the money. You didn't get a lot of money, but, you got enough money to make your movie with very little interference. And,
Right.
And we had Marty executive produced it for us, so he kind of protected Allison's final cut. And it was a great, it was just an amazing collaboration. I mean, once I'd done that with Allison, it was hard to work again for a year just because I felt like we had accomplished kind of so much. It wasn't, like that it was this huge box office hit, but it has stayed around and it's meant a lot to people over the years.
Oh, absolutely. Tell me about your band.
The band is Spar husen.
Right.
They are a Swedish band.
You want to explain the name?
Spar husen, it means spare house
Of course.
in Sweden,
Right.
in Swedish. And this came about, I've been doing this really fun web show sponsored by IKEA called Easy to Assemble. And we were doing music for it, and we couldn't really afford to buy songs or license songs. So we started working on music, Swedish themed kind of monkeys music, like what we thought music from the 60s or 70s would sound like. And the more we started doing it, the more we started developing into these alter ego kind of characters.
How is Swedish music like the Monkees?
Well, the Monkees is just for me because I love the Monkees.
I do too. That's why I didn't know that I love Swedish music that much. Because you just said they were the same thing.
Well, in my head, the Sparhusen is like the Swedish Monkees.
Ah, now we're talking.
Yes. So that's where I understand what's happening up there.
Clearly.
But so we decided that this band, Sparhusen, was only popular in the 70s, similar to the Monkees, that a hoax, that they'd tried a hoax, death hoax, and it hadn't gone very well, which sort of cut short their careers. So they were known as the almost great band of Sweden. And
Not to be confused with the great band of Sweden, which we all know to be
ABBA.
ABBA.
Right. We are the almost great band of Sweden. And but we may be much better than them. We've got all sorts of folk songs and folk music. And we're on MySpace. Sparhusen is SPARHUSEN. But the more we started doing Sparhusen, the more it sort of strangely took off, as these things do, into its own little spin-off, and we played at South by Southwest, and
You performed.
yes, we're
Who's
now,
in the band?
I am in the band, and as Birgit Katzen, and
What do you play?
I play a little bit of ukulele.
Do you?
Yes.
Okay.
And,
What are the other instruments that are used in the band?
the others are more serious instruments. The other musicians are real. Todd Spar plays Gert Forsberg, and Rob Mailhouse is Ulf Nystrom. And our producer, the Whale of Sound, is
Whale of
Vorst Viren.
Sound.
It's not the Wall of Sound.
Right.
But he invented the Whale of Sound. Is Keanu Reeves is our producer, and our manager Bjorn Epstein is
Because you need a Jew.
yes, he's one of 3 Jews in Sweden. Is Wally Langham, and it
great.
has grown on from there. And so what started as kind of a fun little thing to do, we made a little 11-minute movie, and and we started a live show, and now we're possibly doing a series about Sparhusen. So it's really funny, like the craziest sort of spin-off has become real. But it is really a joy, and it in some way comes from grace of my heart, of my love of making music, and we write all the songs and perform all the songs, which is something which goes back to my childhood of doing
Exactly.
all those
Yeah. What an amazing influence.
crazy.
your grandfather actually had by
And the
insisting.
monkeys.
Well, clearly the monkeys, but just insisting that you be that creative. Again,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it helped out. We always had to write songs.
Yeah.
Who didn't?
The clip that we have, it says her trailer is loaded. Would that be from
Nice.
Easy to Assemble, do we think?
We have Easy to Assemble and Otis.
And Otis.
And Otis,
Well,
nice.
let's take a look at Easy to Assemble, if we may.
Sure.
All right, and then we'll talk about it afterward. Funny story. There's no clip. Tell me, that was Spahusen.
Yeah.
Tell me about the genesis for doing a web series with IKEA as the backdrop. Because who hasn't wanted to? You actually did.
That is the brainchild of Magnus Gustafsson, who came to me, and I was doing some, comedy shorts, and I had done a comedy pilot for New Line called Illeana about actors working in a supermarket. And he approached me and said, could I do something for IKEA? And I went to New York, and
Tell us who he is, first of all.
Magnus is the head of marketing for IKEA on the internet. I guess I assume everybody knows him.
No.
So,
I'm here to draw things out of your head,
thank you.
Yeah. Where you're familiar with them.
Yes, thank you.
No.
So I just went and spoke to him in New York. It was very strange, and I just kind of told him some ideas that I would have in IKEA, and he said, okay, that sounds good. And then I thought, well, I'm never going to hear from this guy again. And
Right.
then it started happening. So he said, how quickly do you think you could write the script, and who could be in it? And I just started writing it and got the people in it, and we really didn't have any notes. And so last year we did it somewhat as a test bubble. We shot it last summer.
Right.
And turned out very well, and they liked it very much. And so we've gone back now for season 2.
Right.
Which is even
Do
more
I get to be in
exciting.
season 2?
You are in season 2.
Oh, that's right.
Yes.
I
You will
enjoyed.
always, and season 3,
For God's sake.
which we're already signed up to do, season 3. So we're
And where can folks go to watch and enjoy?
well, right now, I guess you have to find it. Just look up IKEA Easy to Assemble. It's on many different websites,
Right.
YouTube and easytoassemble.tv. As we go into the season 2, IKEA is going to start distributing it themselves, and it's also going to be in 19 countries and be subtitled.
As it should be.
Yes, and so it'll be more of a worldwide phenomenon. And we have a lot of the actors are coming back, and so we're going to see some continuing storylines and some new storylines with Spazzy Sheridan and his Gotcha Nation kind of TMZ type gossip show, and then Justine's show. And really season 2 is more about how me and Justine go head to head for Coworker of the Year
Oh, nice.
to see who will
Well, the show's hilarious, and people should check it out
Thank you.
immediately.
Yeah,
Damn it.
it's a lot of fun.
In fact, stop watching this right now. All 17 of you. Let's go to a little Tweet 5 action.
Sure.
Are you ready for a little Tweet 5?
I'm
And you've
ready.
already kind of worked on your Larry King, right?
No, I hadn't. I'm thinking. I was thinking of Larry King's stories, but go ahead.
Larry King stories?
Yes.
Well, they involve him. But they're not as revealing as they need to be. What is your concern?
No, I was actually at a restaurant.
Oh.
I believe the night he asked his wife to marry him.
You. First of all, Larry can't get down on one knee. So how
he-
does a Larry King?
He was, or they were on a
Propose.
date, but anyway, he was singing to her very, very loudly. And I remember I was on a date. I remember, like, everybody was so distracted, like, Larry, could you keep it down? We're on our own dates, okay? Anyway, I think he may have asked her to marry him that night.
Let me guess, you and the date didn't work out so well, and it
No.
was scarred by the Larry King singing.
think
That's
so.
just a total guess.
I think so.
At Clever Titania, did I get that anywhere near correct? Do we think?
You keep asking me. Your guesses are as good as mine.
Okay.
I'm reading these as you're reading them.
All right. So we're going to say at Clever Titania because that's a name. When you grocery shop,
Yes.
bring your own bags or do you depend on them for the bags? Store bags.
course. Bring my own bags.
Right?
Come on.
Yeah, I do that, but I bring just the grocery store bags.
Oh, really? Yeah, I've
plastic
got
ones.
my own
No,
bags.
I'm
I'm a
kidding.
girl.
On you, do you like to have the short hair or long hair? I'm
Well,
not responsible for these.
oh, I like the wigs. You know, the wigs are 90% of acting, but I'm going with the long hair
In your own life.
in my own life. Yeah.
Because that is a lovely wig you're wearing now.
Thank you, thank you.
And on the men that you may like to date,
The long hair?
do you like the long hair or the short hair?
Oh gosh.
I can't imagine it's ever about the hair, but is there a type of hair that makes that a kill?
Yeah,
A kill switch?
it doesn't really matter. I'm more about the inside.
Listen to you.
The inside.
Role you'd rather play: vapid leading character or layered supporting character?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, you know, although it's always fun to play the leading character because you say, well, if I were the leading character, I guess I would ruin it in some way by making it a more, you know, neurotic, you know, thinking, layered character.
Yeah.
So anybody wants to be the lead. You just want to make it a little bit more interesting. I mean, I think that what I don't like well, there's many things that I don't like about movies these days, but the leading character seems very goal-oriented. There always seems to be chasing some goal, like I'm going to get this guy to marry me so the boss thinks blah, 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 and I'll get a raise. But in the old days, it was much more character-driven, and I just find those to be much more that the leading parts were more interesting because of that.
Yeah, I'd like to hear from the agent or whoever is giving you the script. It's character-driven. That's the phrase I like to hear, actually. You know, as opposed to.
Well, you know, one of the characters in Easy to Assemble it was based on a really wonderful agent I had that was always so cheerful, and that was one of the things I'd say. But she's not even the lead. And he'd go, "No, she's the lead sister," which is in fact the better part. You know,
Oh,
he'd
God.
always.
Oh, wow.
He was one of those. So
Doctor.
he'd put the spin on it.
Yeah.
He was great.
Yeah, I meet with people now, and they want me to be number one on the call sheet, and I say, "Do you not want anyone to see this film? What's the matter with you? There's not going to be a poster, so I'm killing in the other room." Was that the last? Oh, comedy or drama? You know, yeah. I mean, I know what my answer is, but I am curious to see what you think. And obviously, it depends on the material. But let's say they're equally wonderful material. Do you actually have a preference?
I prefer comedy because I like the mood on the set. It's just, you know, when you're doing a comedy, like when we were doing action, you know, every day was just a joy to go to the set. It's funny because my home life at the time was miserable, and you couldn't wait to drive to the set because it was a joy. It was like Jay was going to make me laugh, or Buddy Hackett, or Chris Thompson, or any of the people that were there. It was like the writers, you know, you couldn't wait to get to work because it was like you're just trying to be funny, and then it's like the more you're trying to be funny, then you come up with funny things, and it goes back to the thing I was saying before, where the creation of it is sometimes can be the most fun. And so like when we're doing Easy to Assemble and celebrities pop in or pop out, I mean, you know, I'm on the phone and we got like Tim Meadows in for an hour, like, come on in, you know, and you're on a kind of a high when you're on comedy, whereas like if you're in a drama, I think things, you don't have that looseness that you can throw somebody in and come up with something funny on the spot. So, you know, I guess for me it's more fun.
I subscribe to all those things.
Yeah, it's more fun. And you were...
Just a delight.
Just a delight. He showed up at my house to do this very funny bit. I mean, that's what I love about comedians, too, is that they are good actors. They're always naturally good dramatic actors. They just are. I don't know why their timing is just always really good. And it's not like comedians that like show up with a lot of baggage. They show up like you show up at my house and, you know, like 10 minutes, you're gone in an hour. Yeah. Like you do your funny bit, do a few of these, a few Laurel and Hardys, a few of this, and he's done.
Yeah.
Couple water, a couple bottles of water, and he's gone.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you for the most part that it seems surprising that a lot of comedians are sort of naturals. at acting, and it flies in the face of logic, quite honestly, for a couple of reasons. Comedians are not trained to listen. Acting is all about listening.
Right.
The comedian is so much on this solo endeavor that there is no collaboration.
Right.
And then acting is all about collaboration. And the stand-up comedian, as much as he wants to be himself on stage, he's putting on some sort of act. Even if he's representing a truth, he or she representing a truth in a story, there's some, after you repeat it a few times, then it becomes a performance, whether it's based in truth and or what have you. So that part makes sense because you're used to performing stories. So then it makes sense, I guess, that the actor.
It's interesting, but comedians also bring an iconic personality to their acting. I always find. You put Tom Arnold in something, and boom, you've got your iconic personality. He's doing 50% of my work.
Right.
So sometimes, or Drew Carey, or people that I really enjoy.
If you're writing to that personality, then it makes sense to have that personality in your mind lifted off the page, as you say, and they have their own fuel and their own creativity in terms of.
I just have always loved comedians as actors, and they just bring a natural pathos to what they do, and I don't know why that is.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense really.
But they do. They bring
I remember seeing Don Rickles in Kelly's Heroes.
Yeah.
Right? This sort of iconic Dirty Dozen war movie at the time with Clint Eastwood. And that was one of the first times I saw a guy who I just knew from being a stand-up comedian, and very specific in his stand-up comedy.
Right.
A true original, Don Rickles, in terms of reinventing that wheel and making it his own.
Yeah.
And now anyone who is a put-down artist either worships Rickles, certainly was in the case of De Niro. That my experience with seeing De Niro around Rickles is something I will never forget.
Right. Because
De Niro was just in awe of Rickles, but Rickles knew it.
Yeah.
And he would use it against De Niro. Like in the middle of a shot. Is that the way you're going to do it? Like that?
Yeah.
Really? No, you got the awards. I'm sure you know what you're doing. Go ahead. And to see De Niro fall apart.
Yeah.
In hysterics.
That was it was
a power. It's a power that Rickles has. But then to see him in that movie, not necessarily doing the stand-up bit where he's putting everybody down, but actually portraying someone that's kind of real. I remember being absolutely blown away, and it was probably the genesis of me deciding that, I could be an actor.
Really?
Absolutely. It was Rickles in Kelly's Heroes.
Wow.
I had been fascinated with performances of great actors, but in terms of my own strengths, even at a young age, it was really coming from, I'm never going to be Brandu, I'm never going to be Pacino, I'm never going to be this.
Right.
Ooh, there's a guy doing something that I think I might be able to do. How bizarre is that? Did you have any of those touchstones of actresses? When you were coming up, someone who was doing a kind of work that you thought you might be able to do?
I mean, for me, really, it was more the directors. I mean, although I loved Jane Fonda growing up, I did love her because she was in so many amazing movies. But I was much more like, I loved the Marx Brothers, and I loved Charlie Chaplin and things like that.
So you thought I could be one of the Marx Brothers?
I was obsessed with Groucho Marx growing up. Like, I wanted to marry Groucho Marx.
Right.
It was ridiculous.
Right.
I mean, I would have been, or Laurel and Hardy, or, any of those people. I think they were all dead by the time I was sort of grown up. But, so I would be strangely obsessed with people like that. And then I discovered directors, and then I became obsessed with directors, like, Alfred Hitchcock and all these people. So, but I wasn't, I loved Sophia Loren and I loved Audrey Hepburn, but I never thought, I could have a career like them. I used to be more obsessed strangely with actors like Joseph Cotten, or believe it or not, like Lee Marvin, or Rod Taylor. I liked quite a bit. People like that. Although there were certain people I loved, like Jean Arthur. I did like her a lot, and Shirley MacLaine. I thought she was great.
Yeah, we do tend to collect them.
Yeah.
At some point. I'm going to ask you this last tweet 5, and then we're going to the Larry King show. Does it seem like we've been talking for an hour and 45 minutes?
No.
Okay, good. Has it really been an hour? No.
No.
It's been an hour and 20 minutes. An hour and 20 minutes. It's the longest show.
Alex is complaining.
It's the longest show we've
gotta
done.
go home.
No.
To watch the Tonys.
Our,
That's why he's complaining.
you have no idea. At Martha_S,
Yes.
who
yes,
is
Martha.
our absolute fave. She has a tweet 5 for you.
Sure.
Fave TV guest spot.
Oh, gee whiz. Hard to say. I love the Drew Carey show. I really, really admire Drew Carey, and I love that show. It was so wild, and
Working on it, you mean?
working on it because, again, it was fantasy for me, like that we would do the scenes, and he liked to work very late at night, and so we would do the scenes, and then they'd throw the script away. And then they'd come in with like this, and they'd be like, okay, so then when he hands you the beer, you're gonna say, and they would have joke number 1, joke number 2, and they're just gonna go like this. And it was crazy. And then things got just nuts, and you didn't know what you were gonna say.
And you felt challenged in a way that you didn't normally, so that makes
Yeah,
it
but the audience-
truly extraordinary.
The audience just went crazy, and it felt very, very exciting, like being on live TV. So I'm going to go with that, even though I've had fun and other things. But that was really fun, and I truly admire the Drew Carey show. I think it was very, very underrated. I love that show.
Oh, no, I thought it was great. Not just the first season when I was the voice of his boss, Mr. Bell, on the phone.
Oh,
Favorite childhood meal?
childhood meal. I'm going to go with a seafood.
Are you?
Yes.
Which one?
I'm going to go with the soft-shelled crab.
Really?
Yes,
Nice.
growing up on the East Coast, we used to fish for the soft-shelled crab, and
Nice.
yeah.
Big fan of the crab myself. In Baltimore, have you had those?
Oh,
Brickies?
Fisher Stevens and I, we were doing that show, Homicide, is it?
Uh-huh.
We were like, that's how it happens. Like, we're sitting around, we get this call, like, I'll do it if you do it. And we took the train down, like, can you be on the set tonight? And we're like, sure. You know, we knew the director, Alan Taylor.
Right.
And we're like, okay, sure. So we get on the, we're not going to need you to 12, go off drinking and soft-shelled crab. Like, next thing you know, of course, you're mid-gulp. They need you in 5 minutes.
As soon as you're starting to enjoy yourself.
Yes.
Favorite film of your grandfather's? Well,
I would have to go with Ninotchka and Being There, and The Candidate.
well, you're allowed all 3.
All right, thank you. Love The Candidate. It's great.
Fave movie ending?
Favorite movie ending of a movie? Of any movie?
I'm going to say one of the characters in the film ice skating out over the frozen lake as one of the characters is
That was
frozen inside of it.
Yeah, that was fun. With Season of the Witch playing.
With Season of the Witch playing only because he heard it in your trailer. That's the best part of that story, by the way.
And I got to meet, when I met Donovan, he goes, we're in a film together. I mean, come on.
Oh my God.
He said that to
That
me.
is pretty fantastic.
I was like, and now I retired. Now I just have to meet, I've only got, like sometimes I
Have you
like.
met all the monkeys?
Mike Nesmith. I have a list of people.
Your favorite?
He's my favorite.
Mike Nesmith, he's awesome.
Right?
Fantastic. He's
Come on.
great.
All the way.
We love Mike Nesmith. And Glenn Campbell. I need to meet Glenn Campbell.
Oh, you will.
I have a list.
Just keep drinking. What? Favorite rumor you've heard about yourself?
That I'm Allison Janney.
Damn good question. Why, that's not a
That I'm,
rumor
in
at all.
fact-
That's a misunderstanding.
No, here's the thing. Justine Bateman and Allison Janney and I, we're all sort of friends. Allison went to the same acting school together, the Neighborhood Playhouse. She was a couple years ahead of me. And we always thought it would be a funny show to just talk about what people write about you on the internet. Because there was people write like, it's really weird because she looks like Allison Janney. Of course, I don't think I look at all like her. They go, but it's ironic because Illeana's only 5'1" and Allison Janney is 6'2". I know, so the facts are never correct.
Right.
Or then somebody goes, you know what's weird? I always thought she looked like Justine Bateman, and what's weird is I saw a picture of them hanging out. So so people try to create these conspiracy theories amongst the
That's fantastic.
amongst the celebrity on the on the internet. I'm trying to think of any other good rumors. Usually what I find is so sad is that the true ones never get told, and the ones that are fake often go out there.
Right.
You know, I mean, I've never had one where I'm like, yeah, that's exactly the way it happened. I mean, when we did Cape Fear, they wrote a story that George C. Scott attacked everybody with a 2x4 because he was going to be in the movie, and then he came down and he wasn't well, so he left, and then Joe Don Baker came in.
Right.
But the way they had it was that he attacked everyone with a 2x4.
And that's why he was...
And yes, and he was fired, and then he left. And
Why a 2x4? What an interesting
I don't
choice.
know. That was what
The most annoying one for me on Grumpy Old Men, Mathau and Lemon going to work together again for the first time in all these years, this classic team, right? And we're going to shoot in Minneapolis. There's only one truly amazing suite in the hotel. And the story in the tabloids was that Mathau and Lemon were bickering over who was going to get to stay in this one amazing suite.
Right.
The true story? There was another bedroom at the other end of this ridiculously long, giant, incredible suite. And when the two of them heard about this one suite, they agreed to kick open the door. The odd couple actually lived together while we shot the movie. How is that not a story that sells this stupid fucking magazine?
Right.
Honestly.
Yeah.
That's the story. The odd couple living together?
So they always miss.
Come on!
They always miss the.
They fought over their suite. Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
There was one about me. Like when I did Action, there was a lot of people. People kept calling my manager trying to find out if I had ever been a prostitute or worked as a prostitute or had I ever had any casting couch. And that went on a lot. Like not, so that was another sort of strange,
Right. Love the rumors. All right.
Love the
It's
rumors.
time for Larry King. Take your sip of tea.
Uh-oh.
I want to thank you, but I want to end this correctly.
Uh-oh. Yes.
So when you're ready, into your camera,
Into this
do a
one?
bad Larry King impression. As Larry
That will
reveals
be-
something about yourself that has nothing to do with singing,
Alrighty.
or it could. I'm not going to edit or censor.
Okay. I'm going to take my tea. Good evening. This is Larry King. And it's already bad. I'm just getting ready to have a Dodger dog. And I'd like to tell everyone that even my pajamas at home have suspenders attached to them.
Nice.
I'm sorry, Larry. You're a very nice man. God knows how he gets his hair that way, though. His hair is perfect.
It's perfect in an awful kind of way. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Did you enjoy your chat?
It was a blast, and
Well,
I got
kind of put
tea.
you on the spot there. You didn't really have a choice.
No,
That's how to answer that.
I loved it.
But I enjoyed the chat very much, and I thank you.
I
for
loved it. I
sharing.
didn't get to ask you anything, but
Well,
next time.
Next time you'll ask me. That's how this works.
What was it like? I always talk about that you when you did Otis.
Right.
You were covered in that sticky,
Goo.
horrible blood,
Fake
and you
blood
never
and-
complained in your underwear all day long,
Right.
and you never even complained.
Mind-boggling.
And the other thing I want to say is that the first time when you did Easy to Assemble, of the entire cast of celebrities,
And you had some biggies.
and I had some biggies, you got the highest praise. People said he's one of the funniest people I've ever met, and people said that universally.
So paying the right people. This is
So
fantastic.
when we came back for season 2,
They said, can you get
people
them?
said, "Can you get?" So there was a lot of pressure on me to deliver you.
Nice work.
So thank God, and you brought home the funny. That scene's going to be awesome, and my mom's going to be thrilled because you're wearing her bathrobe.
It's a win-win-win.
It was going to be Keanu's, but we haven't shot that scene, so now it's yours.
Right.
She'll
Sorry.
be thrilled.
Sorry to say.
All right, now I'll shut up.
No. Thank you so much. And
you.
I want to thank all of you as well. My guests, Nia Vardalos, as well as Illeana Douglas. And the crew that worked so hard and well into the third hour by 1 minute and 17 seconds. And my studio audience made up today. I'm sorry, I missed the joke. I missed the joke as it was appearing. They all went home. The crew is gone.
They're watching the Tonys.
Yeah, they're all watching the Tonys. And this is not actually being recorded. All the cameras are off. The lights are off. There's the studio audience. God bless
honey.
Sam Levine and Michael
That's my honey.
Rock, and Naked Jamie. All right. See, you have a whole
Aren't you
dress.
cold?
Freezing. We're gonna have enjoy your time. We're gonna have next week off, I think, but you'll find out from announcements and whatnot. But thank you very much. Thanks to the whole crew for being here and all my guests. And until next time, get out of my face.
He's all of the rainbows, but none of the rain. He's dry.